go. Live. And hello, everyone, and welcome to another day in the Milky Way. Thank you all for coming tonight. It's going to be a great night. We got David Null, who's back on, my trusty co-host, Hawkeye Two Feathers. Thank you for coming, and I'm glad you're feeling better. Uh-oh. He did something, and he will be right back. Don't you worry. Don't know what I did there. Gallery view. Okay, don't you worry. He hit the wrong button, and that's the way it goes. And thank you for coming. Lucky Smith says we are all prospering together. The Soul Tribe is prospering. I am prospering. We are prospering with the collective power of the Soul Tribe. Thank you, all beautiful souls. That is very nice. It's getting better and better, Lucky Smith. Thank you. Glory Elderkin. Yeah, Elderkin. I hope I'm really good at mispronouncing everybody's name. And Witchy Moon, how you doing? Are you doing the thing, Witchy Moon? Are you doing the non-smoking thing? Are you learning? Are you trying to quit? Remember we talked about the vices, and you said you were going to quit, and we got the whole Soul Tribe behind you, hoping that you do. Anyway, you know, the vices, that's the worst, having vices. Besides that, they're expensive. And there you are, back again. Hawkeye Two Feathers, thank you for coming, and I'm glad you're well.
I hit the wrong button. My meds have got me a little loopy, and I was like, oh, let me, there's this great big box in front, and I'm like, oh, you got to hit the button. And I hit a button, and I just disappeared. Whoops.
I seen that. I seen you move, and all of a sudden you went poof, gone. And
I've not done that before, so it ought to be a fun night, y'all. Might have to mute myself for some of my comments.
Well, congratulations, Witchy Moon. She's down to a half a pack a day from 2 packs. Woo! Let's give her the thumbs up.
Girl, I mean it. Because I've been trying to smoke this pack of cigarettes. I've been home from the hospital for a week, and I have let them burn. I got butts over here that I look at and go to light them and go, no, I don't think so. So my heart attacks sure enough have taught me a thing or two about smoking. But if you cut down, oh, God bless you, sweetie, and stay there. Do not slide back.
We're all behind you.
Seeing pictures of my heart and stuff and feeling, what it has done to me. Y'all quit smoking, and me too. I'm gonna hold this one for a while, but I really want to smoke it.
Well, Witchy Moon, if you quit smoking or you having trouble, don't worry. Write one of us an email or something. We'll give you some words of encouragement. I'll get on this show here and I'll pat my head and rub my stomach for you if you'll stop smoking for another day. How about that? We got Mark the Arc Spark in the house.
Hey, Mark.
And Michelle Can-Am Free, our love child. Thank you, Michelle Can-Am Free, for coming. She says, I love you all. And I haven't seen her back for a while, so she must have been busy, but I appreciate you coming tonight. It always makes me feel good to see you in the house.
I think she was on the road.
Oh, she was. Okay. Well, that's all right. Traveling. Anyway, tonight we are going to talk about this guy right here. And that is Pontiac.
Lean the other way so we can see his face. Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, Pontiac.
You don't have a ring in your nose, though, Robert.
Oh, yeah. He does have a ring in his nose. Okay. Interesting. That is interesting. Anyhow, tonight I'm going to talk about Pontiac, and you're gonna probably have a story for us tonight.
Yep.
But first, we want to talk a little bit about what you talked about this morning. And if you all haven't seen his show this morning, go back and check out David Null's channel. The description or the link should be in the description. If it isn't, somebody, I'd appreciate if somebody put in the comments. Pa Joe, hey, there you go. Much favor and prosperity to you. Anyhow, go ahead and go find that show. It was really interesting today. Got me all riled up all day. And I kept yelling at the phone. I had the phone playing on the radio, thing, and I'm yelling at, hey, I kept saying, listen, but you couldn't hear me. But anyhow, the point was you were talking. Go on, tell us what you were talking about this morning.
Well, I went really into depth, but there's some Catholic folk out there, and they've been criticizing the Pope for going up to Canada and visiting our Canuck friends up there and talking with the elders and trying to work out some kind of reprieve. I don't know what's going on up there. And because I was in the hospital going in and out of heart attacks, but I've noticed it on the way out, and I was like, wonder what he's doing and so forth. But there've been a lot of response. Now, one of those responses, I'm not involved in the Catholic Church anymore. I grew up in it, graduated Tampa Catholic, went to Most Holy Redeemer school before I went to Tampa Catholic. I was an altar boy back in the day when the priest and everybody had their backs to you. I went through the whole transformation thing when the church turned everything around and faced the audience. I used to read the gospel every Sunday, sometimes 2 or 3 masses as an altar boy or as a deacon of sorts. So I'm very much involved in the Catholic Church myself. And but I had my issues with priests and stuff back then. Now, I ain't going to go into any of that, just to say that I had my issues and it was not fun. So the folks that are talking about, I have met some of these indigenous people. Now, the indigenous people versus the church, and it doesn't necessarily matter if it's the Catholic Church or if it's the Methodist Church, because I've spoken with people from Canada at a retreat. It was a religious retreat in Middle Tennessee about 15 years ago. And I went there as a puppeteer and a storyteller, and also to relate my story and how I came as a white man, found out about my native heritage and want to know more about my native heritage versus just sit out there and not know it at all. So anyway, I attend this meeting, and there's a gentleman there and other people from up in that area. I can't remember the tribe. And he does an hour-long presentation to about 150 people about how the Methodist Church came into their small town in Canada and took over the tribe, separated the husbands and the wives from the kids, separated some of the kids depending on how bad they were. He talked about how they used to put them in the basement with the lights closed and they weren't lights off, but they weren't allowed to speak their language. They weren't allowed to practice any of their ceremonies or tell any of the stories. He told about how, he was beaten, how the other children were beaten if they tried to speak to one another, like in a sign language or something. That was out. Now, these were Methodist folk. Now, that was about 2012. He was about 35 years old, so count back. That was in the 70s and 80s. This wasn't at the turn of the century. And I was amazed because I'd heard a lot of stories about the churches moving into an area and how they just literally, if the native peoples wouldn't do what the Jesuits or whoever was in charge, they beat them, they chained them, they literally raped them, boys and girls. There are lots of stories throughout different portions and provinces of Canada where they went behind these not necessarily all Catholic, but they went behind the churches and behind the schools, and there are all these mass graves of children. And now you probably heard stories of that. They're true. And when you talk to the elders, and then their children have been marked, and sent to these schools, it wasn't the turn of the century. It's been as late as, the 70s, 80s, and maybe in some places it's still going on, which is really a shame. So, but one of my issues about that is that the church people who are talking about it, they're bragging because, oh, look what we did for the Indian communities.
Yep. Hey, Ken, can I show them what you were talking about?
Absolutely.
Okay, we're gonna, remember, we gotta get through the whole night here.
Right.
So-
I'm trying to wrap this up
All
to
right,
give.
I know, but I wanna show everybody what we were looking at here. In this here, the Pope went to Canada to apologize for some Indigenous schools. Some, you notice it says some Indigenous school survivors. He triggered more pain. This talks about some girl who, I'll just read you the first part. Her grandmother sewed, she went to school. She had a white winter's coat, a handbag. Her grandmother sewed it for her when she was 4 years old. She says before she was sent to Fort Alexander Residential School in the 60s, but the nun took the coat from her. She says she remembers the nun took it off of me, threw it at my mom, and the nun called my mother a savage. And it foreshadowed years of abuse. She was assaulted and sexually assaulted by a priest at the school for years. You know, and this is in prison, pointed on her for years. Now, this guy, she says she identified the priest as now retired 92-year-old Arthur Mass. So this guy's still alive. How can you imagine this? This poor lady. You know, the Pope Francis arrived in Canada this week. And then it goes on more dark history. People can look this up. This is on CNN website. There's probably other websites. I just clicked the first one to see. It says more than 4,000 children died at residential schools. So like you said, there's mass graves out back. You know, on that Fort Alexander. So you're right. You know, this has been going on for a long time. And here's the Pope trying to apologize. You know, it's not the Pope, it's these other people. And the thing is I think that's the church. You know, there's crooked people there. They should police that a little bit or something.
It wasn't just the Catholics,
Oh,
because
yeah,
the gentleman, I was at a Methodist retreat.
Yeah.
With Methodist folks, ex-Catholic, right? And
Yeah.
I'm hanging out with these folks, and now he was abused, like I said, in the 80s ish.
Yeah.
And I was like, how can you still be like ministering under the Methodist Church? I said, when I was sexually abused by a priest in the Catholic Church, I got out of there. I'm like, no. So, I mean, I spoke to him privately, but I was shocked. He goes, oh, but I believe in Jesus. And I said, yeah, but I believe in Jesus, but what about the church? The church is what sponsored these people to come in and put you in the basement and to do these things to you. Mm-hmm. Oh, but these were just bad men within the church. Okay, I mean, I see where you're trying to do the whole forgiveness thing, but they sponsored it, dude.
Well, you know, and that let's just boil it down here. And it's the church, not the religion itself, but the church. But it all stems from the religion, and it goes from the top down. Because
ain't no Buddhist did it.
Well, that's true. That's what I'm saying. But it doesn't matter. You know, what I look at is that more people have died from religion, wars, you know, things that somebody's saying, you know, this Bible says, and then you gotta die. You don't believe in it. And go ahead.
One of the things that in that article that the nun called her mother savages.
Yes.
Now, to the point, having been a Catholic, having served as an altar boy, let me tell you, their services are based on some very pagan rituals. They're changing that little white piece of bread into the body of Christ. They're taking the wine and turning it into blood, and then they're telling everybody to eat his body, drink his blood, and we'll sing a song of love. That's cannibalism. But these people that do this with magic, because they say these prayers, come over here, and you know, all of the Americas, and tell the indigenous people that they're the savages.
Yeah. Well, and see, that's you got a point there. You know, the thing is
wrong.
that they're doing a ritual. They're doing a ritual. They're doing this magic spell, and they're getting everybody to follow in it. And I know I hate to say it, but you know, cover your ears, people, if you don't want to hear this. But I think that, you know, that magic spell gets to some people.
It's got to a
And
bunch of people.
yes, exactly.
Having been there, having served it, having been a part of the process as a 6-year-old child at 6:30 in the morning, being an altar boy at mass.
Yeah.
So,
Well,
folks would like to say, well, you don't really know what you're talking about, Dave. Yeah, I do. Riding your bicycle in the middle, before the sun's up to get there. Yeah, I do. But to the point though, having visited that, having been to a lot of powwows and having been to ceremonies, having visited with elders, nobody's ever tried to sacrifice anything, period. So, but here's the thing with the people of the church, Catholic or otherwise, they're, because of the way the priest handled me and other folks that I've talked about, and it wasn't just the girls that got raped, it was the boys too.
Yeah.
And they suffered just as badly. I met a gentleman where they tied his stuff up with a wire for punishment. And I'm sorry, but no Native American, unless you had done something evil somewhere, would they do something like that?
Yeah.
So
You know,
who were the savages? But with the religion, they have the power. They have the power of God behind them. And that gives them this supernatural twisted look in their eye. And this, that you better do as I say, because I'm a messenger of God. I mean, that's
and the thing is that those kind of people will look up a phrase, a sentence in the Bible somewhere that says, see, it says right here I should be doing this.
Right.
It says right here that you're wrong, I'm right, and I'm going to follow out with God's message and do what it says in the Bible, and you're going to pay the price. And like I said, it's a tough one.
One of the things that I had found in my own misdealings with the priests, they use this red hot poker as punishment. The red hot poker, and because you've been bad, and then we're going to teach you how to use the red hot poker. When you learn how to become the messenger of God, you'll be able to mete out punishment to those who have sinned, and you'll use the red hot poker. And I'm like, what the hell? But I have seen and heard about the red hot poker thing in many different areas within the churches. So they just, they looked at Native Americans still to this day as savages.
Yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely.
Okay. So
and I think after all this time of all the things, people still think that way.
I know.
And think the churches did them a favor by making those savages conform to what the churches wanted to teach.
They were kind of more civilized.
What hurts me the most.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Pa Joe says, I was listening to the Why Not People story. I hope I said that right. About the massacre on the island in Humboldt Bay 3 years after the military supposedly came to help. Go figure. Over 200 children, people killed. Wow. Yeah. And that was in 1860. Yeah. Here, I'm from the military. I'm going to help. Line up. But anyway, I know this bothers people a lot of times. Susie Q's in the house. She's watching her grandkids. Hello, Susie Q. I know you're just listening, but thanks for being here.
I want to drop one other thing about that, though. There are a lot of people who are discussing, that the native peoples owned the land. Let me tell you, when the United States government, quote, bought the Louisiana Purchase, which we have discussed here on this show, it doesn't belong to the people.
That's right. Well, I want to add something about that. You were talking about that earlier, and I says, okay, follow the money. I buy the land, right? You're living on it, right? You're a Native American. I can't charge you taxes. I can't make you pay rent on the land. You're just a freeloader. But if I get these other people here and they go out there and I chunk off chunks of land, now I can put them on, those people who go on that land, they'll pay me, the government, tax money every year for the rest of their lives for that land I bought and pay for it in full. Whereas the Indian people look at them and say, well, we've been living here. The government can't come up to that tribe and look at them and say, well, we bought the land you're on, pay us this amount of money or furs or whatever. No, they knew better. We got to get those people in the mindset of the white people. And the government can't go in there and forcibly do it because they're the government, right? What do? They team up with the churches, the religion stuff. They send them in there because, I'm the plotter, I do good stuff. Okay. And they do a little bit of good stuff, but then they're carrying out an alternative agenda by making these people conform to the white man's ways through religion.
Yep.
And then once they're conformed, they say, and just like we reviewed many times on the show about the Indians, they had a big chunk of land, and then
they had the whole United States and Canada. I mean,
that's right. They had their, well, I was thinking like the Comanches. We did the Comanches. They had a big chunk of land, and then they narrowed it down. Then they put them on a reservation. Then they narrowed down the reservation. And then eventually they said, we'll give you all 160 acres, just like everybody else, and we'll call it good. Why? Because if we give you, an individual, 160 acres, now we're going to tax you on it. And it was a slow drip because the Coeur d'Alenes, we talked about the Coeur d'Alenes. They had this huge chunk of land. They had thousands of horses. They had, farming, and they were doing really good. The government went, they're doing really good, and we need some of that timber, and we need the land, and we'll just divide it up and give them 160 acres, and there you go.
Yeah,
all done. Now they're paying us money. Yay!
And here's the thing: in talking with the elders myself, and they try to say that the Indians own the land, and no, because no Native American I ever spoke with, that you can't own Mother Earth.
No.
You just simply can't own Mother Earth. Tribes had areas and places where they had staked a claim, but they all knew that they didn't own it. And they were really mad at the white man for taking ownership of it.
Yes. How did that, I've been looking at this at a different angle, and you're right. So the Indians, according to the books and stuff, even this one here about, we were going to talk about Pontiac, the creator guy, whatever, gave them, all this land, and he put on all the animals that they needed and everything they needed, right? And then they didn't have to farm it like, I'm going to raise deer and elk and cows and buffalo and blah, 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 blah. They just naturally took what they needed instead of being greedy. And that's what ended up happening is what I'm going to talk about tonight here in a little bit, that they weren't greedy. They took what they needed. And all the land was a farm. They didn't need to farm it. They just planted some crops and they shot the deer as, just like we'd go out and harvest a cow or a pig or, whatever. Then the white man came along and he said, I'm going to fence this land off. I'm going to clear those trees and I'm going to fence it off. I'm going to put a cow here and some chickens and a pig. And now there's no more deer. There's no more buffalo. There's no more, roaming around free for them, so their hunting land was gone. They needed that vast space for their animals to raise themselves.
Right. And so, you know, I mentioned in my show, I said, could you imagine if the white man had never made it to the shores of the to the Americas, if they had never come, how pristine this place still would be. There wouldn't be any factories and huge cities. There might be large Indian tribes and stuff and folks spread out, but you know, the industrial age, if the industrial age had never made it to the Americas, think about how good this planet would be. But anyway,
yeah.
in the ownership of property, so because the Louisiana Purchase, which we talked about, I'm in Georgia at the moment, which was one of the original 13 colonies, but it was still it wasn't bought until they said they owned it. You know, when they staked a claim for the crown, then all of a sudden ownership became part of the deal. And ownership, it started out as the states. Now, but from the Louisiana Purchase, they became states. So it first belongs to the United States, then it belongs to whatever state or territory you live in, and then it goes down to the county where you live. And you can't get away from taxes. I don't own this land. I own a piece of paper that says I have, guess what? Title to it.
Yeah, you're just
I'm entitled to live here because I paid this enormous fee and my taxes are due of $400 and something in December. If I don't pay them, they've tried to take my land several times because I couldn't pay all the taxes at one time. And, you know, in Colquitt County, unfortunately, is one of the worst in the state of Georgia in collecting taxes like that. They're mean, boy. But at the same time, if you think you're going to get away from paying taxes and that you actually own the property, oh, my dear people, we don't. We have title to the property.
We're leasing it from the county,
That's
and
it.
The county leases
That's
it from the state, and the state leases it from the government.
Yep. And for those folks that think, oh, we're going to give it back to the native peoples, it was never the land. From their understanding is, y'all dummies. It never belonged to you in the first place. So giving the land back to the natives, you can't do it.
No, yeah.
Because they weren't there for the titleship of ownership.
Yeah.
Anyway, I'm done with that. Thank you, Robert. I really do think that it's important that people understand some of these things because Native peoples are being persecuted still to this very day. And if we think that these wars are over between the white man and the church and the Native communities, oh, please.
Well, you know, I got to have you on for an Atlanta show one of these days.
Okay.
But I do believe that there's been cycles and cataclysms and things like that have happened over and over and over, and these societies came and went. Because, like, for instance, we'll just use the trees, right? Now we have the redwood trees. Everybody knows the red. I'll just use those trees. You have the redwood trees of California, right? And some of the big ones are like, 2,000 years old, right?
They're huge.
Yes, they're definitely huge. And but the thing is you got a redwood. I'm gonna pull it up for everybody.
When I was in Northern California in '99, I've got huge 150 to 200-year-old pine trees on my property, and these things are huge. The redwoods made them look like little tiny matchsticks.
Well, exactly. So here's my point. I'm gonna show this to everybody real quick. We're gonna go to the redwoods, and here you go. Look how big. Look at how big these trees are. They're huge, right? They're 2,000 years old. Some of them are, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Okay, that should raise a question for you right there. I got a tree. It's 2,000 years old, right? what was there before that tree?
Right.
Why did those trees get to be 4,000 years old or 2,000 years old or whatever they are, and they got really big? That's because nobody cut them down. But maybe they should be 4,000 years old because nobody cut them down. And if nobody's been here, say for, what, 10, 12,000 years, the Indians weren't cutting them down.
That's right.
So if the Indians didn't cut these trees down, and they lived to be thousands and thousands of years old, so why don't we have 10,000-year-old trees?
Why don't we have?
Yeah, why aren't these trees 10,000
Because
years
the
old?
natural cycle of a lot of trees are only so old. I mean, now down here in Thomasville, we've got a live oak tree in the city of Thomasville, and it's got one of the oldest standing live oaks. It's like a bunch of years old. It's being supported by guy wires, and I mean, it's like 2 blocks from downtown.
Yeah.
Famous tree. It's over. I want to say it's 200 something years old, but I honestly can't remember. It's old. And recorded and all that. They take care of it, the whole 9 yards. And there are some old trees down in the swamps and stuff, but some of these trees just can't their limbs get too heavy, their trunk gets rotted, things start to live inside them. And I think from that standpoint, there is a natural cycle to all trees, even some of these ancient ones. But also I do think cataclysms and storms and things, because in my backyard several years ago, when Hurricane Michael came through, we've got a lot of devastation that's still back in my backyard.
Oh, and I agree with a lot of that. But a redwood, unfortunately, doesn't really rot very fast either.
Right.
Takes, it's one of those trees that just doesn't deteriorate either. And then the trees get so big. So now you got trees that are 2,000 years old. Why ain't they're that was my big question. So you got a lot of these trees and they're huge, but they stop at a certain point.
Right.
And the 2,000-year-old tree ain't dead either.
Right. Well,
So,
about oh man, where they did the E.T. movie. What's it called out there in Wyoming? Devil's Tower.
yes.
Devil's Tower.
That was no, not the E.T. That was the of the fifth kind or something.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
But it still had to do with E.T. But anyway.
I thought E.T. the movie guy.
Oh no. But anyway, I was thinking da 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 da.
Yeah, the big
right.
Yeah.
But that's a tree trunk.
Yeah, exactly.
And they're in California, below the dam, Oroville Dam, there's a plain. And if you look on Google Earth, there's a great big spot in that valley. And that looks like a giant, ancient, humongous tree, the same size as Devil's Tower. And so there are evidence of trees, that have literally turned to stone. And those are just 2 examples. So I just think time and nature and stuff, but there were even more ancient trees than the redwood. So. Oh
yeah. Well, but I'm saying is, because when the white man came to the Americas, right? The trees were huge.
Yep.
They were already so big, the trees were, that I did a show, a little 10-minute or show about the giant trees that like Washington wrote in his book, that him and all his men went into the tree at night to live, or camp out, because the tree was the stump was hollowed out. It was so big, 20 guys could go in there. People were making houses out of that tree stump. Yeah, it was so big.
And one of the reasons why Georgia became so famous was because of the long-leaf yellow pine, and because they used them for the masts on their sailing ships.
Yeah.
And they brought prisoners over. Georgia was a penal colony, and brought prisoners over to literally mine these stumps out of the swamps for their shipbuilding.
Yeah. And like I said,
And turpentine.
You know, everything was at a certain point. It was all growing up for, 500,000 years. Nobody had touched anything, but it was like this barrier that stops right there. And it's like, so what happened before that? That's my big question.
It must have been interesting though.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. It kind of raises a question in my head, and I'm still digging. That's the history. And we might never know because of the fact that the Indians didn't keep any records and say, they just passed down things, as we know on the myths and legends. So tonight I'm going to talk about Pontiac. And we're going to share screen, and
I told you before I'd rather have a Buick, but that's an inside joke.
And here you go. This is Pontiac. He was a great Indian of the Ottawas, and he lived in one of those birch wigwams, the ones we always talk about, the long house.
Right.
We showed plenty of anyway, he grew up as a normal kid. In the winter, they gathered firewood all summer and winter to heat the houses.
Let me interject something.
Yes.
What's the normal kid like growing up back then?
They just it says here.
I'm just saying. I mean, it just says he was a normal kid. Yeah, but what were normal? Was it? Never mind.
It says he was very much like all the other boys of his race. He on wet days he hung out inside his pretty baby frame from the roof of the birch wigwams. As he swang there, his bright black eyes watched his mother at work. I suppose she was making food. Perhaps she was roasting a piece of deer meat for his father for dinner, or maybe she was baking corn cakes, which make delicious meals with syrup from maple trees. And she was a basket weaver, embroiderer. She made moccasins from sweetgrass. She drove, and of course, they did corn planting in the springtime and prepared the fields. He picked roots and dug rushes out, making mats to cover the lodge floor. They did a lot of that. There was a time when the red man had never seen a gun nor drunk fire water. They hunted their prey with bows and arrows. They made their hatchets of stone. Their only coverings were of skins of wild animals. In those good old days, the Indians were stronger than now. And this is what they're talking about. Pontiac wasn't as strong as his forefathers were. They could go longer without food, and they had less sickness. So anyway, they raised corn. They battled other tribes. It says the chief's son also heard about battles his father had fought with and got scalps of enemies he had brought home. He had listened to many strange legends too. The Ottawas lived on a group of islands in Lake Huron, but they also had powerful enemies in other tribes who made war upon them and drove them from their home. Okay, at one time, this is where this story about Pontiac really came up with a lot of things. And here's another picture of Pontiac making. Okay, at a certain man among the tribe, talks about where they got the corn. A certain man among the tribe was a magician. He did not flee when the others did, because they were getting drove away from their home. They were living on the lakes and they had enemies. He would only stay behind and guard and watch the enemy, and he did. He got up very early one morning and went out to hunt in the thick woods where he could not easily be discovered. After a while, he found himself on an edge of a broad plain. He turned his sharp eyes every direction, and no one was in sight. He felt that it would be safe to cross the plain and started on his way. When he had gone some distance, a very small man with a red feather on his head suddenly appeared before him. This little man called to the magician and asked him pleasantly, "Where are you going?" "Let us smoke together." The magician answered and did as he asked. While they were smoking together, the strange little man asked, "In what does your strength lie?" The answer was, "My strength is like that of all men and no stronger." At these words, the little man declared, "We must wrestle. If you should throw me, you shall say to me, Wagimia, Wagimina. Yeah, Wagimina. I have thrown you." I guess that's what it means. As soon as they had finished smoking, they began to wrestle. They strove together for a long time. It was hard to tell who would win. And at last, however, the little man was thrown to the ground, and the magician cried out at once, "Wagamina, I have thrown you." The very moment he said these words, the little man vanished. The magician looked down at the spot where the stranger had fallen. In his place lay a single ear of corn, and with the hairy red tassel at the top. As he stood looking, he heard a voice speaking from the ear of corn. It said, "Take off my covering. Leave nothing to hide my body from your eyes. You must then separate me into parts, pulling off my body from the spine upon which I grow. Throw me into different parts of the plain. Then break my spine and scatter it in small pieces near the edge of the woods, and return to visit the place after 1 month." The magician did as he was told, and then he went back to his lodge. At the end of the month, he went again to the plain. He was greatly surprised to find it was filled with spikes and blades of young corn. He also found pumpkin vines growing in the places where he had thrown pieces of the cob. He went away and busied himself watching his enemies along the shores of the island. When the summer was over, he returned to the plain once again. A beautiful sight now met his eyes. The full ears of corn were ripe on the waving stalks. Besides this were pumpkins of great size. He picked some of the corn and gathered a number of the lovely young yellow pumpkins. He had no sooner done this than he heard a voice speaking to him. It said, "You have conquered me. If you had not done so, you would have lost your life. You have gained the victory. You shall never again be without me. My grains shall nourish the human race." And this was Pontiac's people, and they received the gift of corn. And I thought that was kind of neat because Pontiac, he goes on about, he was hunting with his father and stuff, but that was what separated their tribe from all the rest, because they had corn and pumpkins and beans and things like that. And as when the white man came, as you can see here, Pontiac had met up with the French, the Indian, because the French owned this whole chunk of land, as we were talking about the Louisiana Purchase.
Right.
They owned that whole chunk of land, and they traded with the Indians. And according to what it says here, Pontiac had seen these men, and they traded with them. And there were two kinds of these white people: the French and the English. Okay. The Frenchmen who guarded a big fort in Detroit, because Detroit was actually the French's fort, and they were kind and pleasant to the Indians and gave them presents. They made many promises of help and friendship. They bought the furs of the red man and paid well in return. But then there was trouble. In England, there was the French War, and the French were conquered. And once the French were conquered, they sold the land to the English, and the French abandoned the forts, and the English came in and took the forts and took the land. And this was where everything went wrong. The Indians could not understand what was going on, because they liked the Frenchmen, but they were just leaving. And then the English people came. Pontiac did not like them. He heard the men in his tribe speak of them in anger. The English treated the red men scornfully.
They did not use soft, pleasant words like the French neighbors. Neither did they behave like brothers. They made hard bargains. As Pontiac became older, he even grew to hate the cold, proud English. And last, the time came when Pontiac went to war. He brought home many scalps of his enemies. And so forth. Okay. But he dreamed of a time when different tribes around him should work together as a great body. He knew the English were there and they could overpower him. So Pontiac, being the great chief he was, he got together and he got all the tribes together to work together. And together he knew they could defeat the English, and they did. This was probably one of the best fought campaigns the Indians ever did. They reigned, but Pontiac was deceived. The French kept telling him that their king would soon come and send plenty of troops to help them. Pontiac made plans with all the different tribes, and they went to every fort and tried to take them over or destroy the forts. And a lot of the tribes were successful in destroying and capturing the forts, but Fort Detroit was not captured. The Indians, who normally would just, come in and do a guerrilla attack and, attack for a day and then run away, they laid siege to Fort Detroit for over a year. The men at the fort almost starved to death because they even chased away the boats. But one boat made it through, and then therefore the troops survived and kept on fighting. Eventually, the Indians finally gave up. Anyway, they came along. The Frenchmen, the Indians, Pontiac believed it. Okay, I'm skipping ahead a little bit here. I told you all about that. I read this through so many times. Okay. So anyway, Pontiac wanted to know how to defeat the English. He went, it says here, this is another story. He went on a little, one of those journeys, where you, what do you call that? When you go on that dream journey or whatever you call, I can't remember. In this story of what?
A dream journey, but
okay. So in this story, a man who wished to, so he had this dream. He went to the forest, and of course he fasted alone in the forest for many days. And he had dreamed of a story, a man who wished to gain wisdom from the master of life. Yet he did not know where to find him. So he went away to fast. Then he learned that if he would reach the Great Spirit, he must move straight ahead without turning. He made ready for where he was going, if he was going to hunt. He took his gun and his horn and his powder, and besides this, his kettle to cook the food. On and on he traveled till the evening, and on the 8th day he stopped to get supper. He saw 3 paths before him, leading on through the woods. Dark night settled down on the earth. Then, to the man's surprise, the paths could be seen even more plainly than in the daytime. He thought of his errand, and he did not care to take for his supper now. He must go forward. But which of these paths into the forest should he follow? He chose the broadest one. He had not gone far when a great fire leaped up before his feet. He could not go any farther in this direction. So he turned back until he came to the starting place and the other paths. This time he chose the second path. He traveled only a short way when the fire, like the first time, started up before him. He was filled with wonder and fear, yet he went back bravely to follow the third and last path. For the whole day he kept on. At the end of that time, he came out of the forest and found himself facing a mountain of wondrous whiteness. Its sides were very steep, and it seemed impossible to climb. I can go no farther, he thought with a sad heart. Just then he saw above him a woman, all in white. She spoke to him, asking him how to expect to do what he wished, and he had such a heavy load. She bade him to throw away his gun, his food, and clothes. Well, that was a hard decision. After that, he must bathe in the stream at the foot of the mountain. He could not hope to come before the master of life unless he did these things. The man did as he was told and began to climb. It was hard work, and he had little hope. The woman watched him for a while. Then she laughed at him, and having so little courage, she said, "You must climb with only one hand and one foot if you wish to succeed." Once more he obeyed. At last he managed to reach the summit. He found himself on a wide, beautiful plain. A man with rich garments appeared before him. Taking his hand, he led the traveler into a dazzling presence of the Great Spirit. He spoke to him in this way: "I am the master of heaven and earth, the trees, lakes, rivers, and all things. I am the maker of mankind, and because I love you, you must do my will. The land on which you live, I made." This is where it gets into what we were talking about today. "The land on which you live, I made for you, and not for others. Why do you suffer the white man to dwell among you? My children, you have forgotten the customs and traditions of your forefathers. Why do you not clothe yourself in skins as they did, and use the bows and arrows and the stone-pointed lances which they used? You have bought guns, knives, kettles, and blankets from the white man until you can no longer do without them. And what is worse, you have drunk the poisoned firewater, which turns you into fools. Flinging all these things away, live as your wise forefathers lived before you. And as for these English, these dogs dressed in red, they have come to rob you of your hunting grounds and drive away the game. You must lift the hatchet against them, wipe them from the face of the earth, and then you will win my favor back again, and once more be happy, prosperous. The children of your great father, the King of France, are not like the English. Never forget that they are your brethren. They are very dear to me, for they love the red man and understand the true mode of worshiping me." Besides these words, the Great Spirit gave the man other teachings as to the way in which he ought to live. Then when he finished, the traveler left the beautiful plain and came back to earth. Well, and Pontiac told the council this. Well, what do you think about that?
I think it's nutty in a lot of ways, that they would, but a lot of things are based on dreams in native areas.
Mm-hmm.
And also, not just indigenous people, but, the Orientals and some of the Southeast islands and so forth. There are traditions to where, you got to dream about it before you can act on it. I mean, but that's just some strange information right there.
Yeah, I know. I thought out of that whole thing about Pontiac, that was really interesting. It talks a lot about the war. They called it Pontiac's War because what it was is the English were not giving him good deals on the furs.
Right.
And this goes back to where the Indians were out there killing all the animals and making furs out of them to trade for kettles and guns and powder and all of these things like the white man had.
Anything metal.
Yes. And the Indians were literally decimating their hunting grounds for the trade. All the beavers and everything. It was just going to the wayside. Now the war there was between the 1850 and 1863 or 4 or something like that, when it kind of all died down. But that was about the same time as the beaver were running out, and the prices went down, and now they weren't worth a whole lot. And so you got to figure, here's our only source of income is these beaver pelts and the hides and things, and all of a sudden there's no place to sell them, and nobody wants to give much for them.
Right. And here's the thing is, like, if you just look in modern society, it's all about what is the what's the fad of the day? Oh, we
Yeah.
all wanted this one. I mean, there were like the one of the woodpeckers down here in the South were wiped out for their feathers
Yeah.
because women wanted them, and blah, blah, blah. And, wiped them out. There were folks hunting them woodpeckers, to extinction. Now, an aside to that is there are some of us who think they're still here and they still reside in the Ochlockonee River Basin and in my backyard. But anyway, but to the point though, so they would bring something and everybody liked it. So they got as many as they could. And when they flooded the market, they went, well, it's not popular anymore. So never mind.
That's pretty much it. To finish up with this, so Pontiac, this is kind of a sad story. Pontiac, he finally eventually says, I can't beat these English. They just keep coming. He signs a treaty with them and he kind of, dissolves the partnership of all the Indians there. And he says, I'm done. I did my thing. I'm going to just retire, literally. But he liked the French and he traveled down to Missouri, St. Louis, Missouri, to be factual. He went to Missouri to visit some officers that he knew from the French fort. He visited with some Indians. He visited some other Indians. He was an English trader who didn't like Pontiac. Now there's conflicting stories. I've read all over the place, but I've never seen any of this, what's written in this book, wrote anywhere else or told anywhere else. So this is a first for everybody. And I'll just read this little bit. When he went to the French, and it says when it was over, Pontiac walked through the neighborhood forest singing a medicine song he believed would always bring good fortune. It happened that there was an English trader in the village who was secretly watching all that the chief did. He did not believe that Pontiac was a friend of the English and wished for a chance to kill him. The trader looked around till his eyes fell upon some friendly Indians. He said, "Follow Pontiac and kill him. I will give you a barrel of rum as a reward. I will give you even more if you succeed." The bargain was soon made. The man stealthily followed Pontiac as he went singing through the woods, watching for his chance. The trader crept up behind the chief, and then suddenly he drove his tomahawk into the head of the old warrior. Thus the wise and daring yet cruel Pontiac met his death. So after all of this stuff he did, he died. Oh, look at that. There's one of those wampum belts that they used for communication. This was the joining of the tribes. This was the wampum belt for the joining of the tribes. And hey, and there's the car he drove down to St. Louis. I thought you'd get a joke out of that one.
Those were good old cars, though, let me tell you.
Yeah. Yes, it was. But yeah, so the thing is the Great Spirit was telling him, and this is probably why he didn't succeed. He says, you need to get rid of all the white man's stuff. They're poisoning you. The poison fire water. They were trading all their animals, that are running loose for guns
their
and things.
Souls.
Yes, exactly. They didn't, once that stuff ran out, they're not going to. It ain't like the beaver going to come back next year. They killed millions and millions of beaver. I forget what the total was. It was astronomical till they were almost extinct.
And if you've ever been around a beaver pond,
mm-hmm.
So here's the thing, there were millions of beavers. What did that do to the ecology of the land? Mm-hmm. I mean, because beavers build ponds, there are fish, they're complete habitats that beavers can create from their dams.
Mm-hmm.
They chew trees, they do this. So you take out all them beavers, we don't know what they did when they took them all out.
Mhm.
because there was no record. Nobody was worried about, what about all those beaver ponds? What about all the lowlands? What about all the trees that would chew and bark? I mean, so they took them all out. That could have had a severe impact on the land itself.
Yeah, yeah,
A
exactly.
severe effect on the land itself.
Yeah, because they and then the thing is they didn't just kill the deer or the beaver. They killed the beaver, and then that affected everything else, and then the deer and the elk. Because before in 18, here's another neat fact for you. In what was it, 18? I can't remember. It was 1804 or 1812. The last buffalo on the eastern side of the Mississippi was killed. So there was buffalo in the eastern half of the United States, but when the settlers came, they killed them all off till they weren't no more. I mean, and then and there was elk there. There was elk all throughout the United States, from the east to the west, but they killed all of them too. And what's left is basically what's in the middle of the United States, because they came from both sides, and we stopped killing them all before they got extincted.
Well, the good news is that they have reintroduced elk on the eastern coast and all along the Appalachians and up in Cades Cove, in the Smoky Mountains. Years ago, they introduced elk. And with friends and relatives up there, the elk apparently are doing pretty good. And some of the people are pissed off because it's bad enough to hit a big deer. If you hit an elk, it's like hitting a semi.
Well, yeah, and that's the thing. When there's so many people, you just can't have those giant. It'd be like saying, well, we're going to reintroduce saber-toothed tigers because they used to live here too.
Oh, come on.
But you know what I'm saying. And
I do. But here's the thing, they have introduced them, and it's like, well, we're just going to have to live with it.
Yeah.
And I honestly agree that the elk should be back up in those mountains, because to see them and to have had one rock right out of the woods, like, where did this huge son of a gun just come from? It just stepped out onto the road, and I was like, oh,
yeah.
So they are magnificent critters and animals, and I take chances. We down here in the South take chances with deer all the time.
Yeah,
you guys probably do up there too. I think it's just a fact of life. I've hit 3 deer, so the front end of my truck's all beat up from hitting deer. But I just think I would rather be more that's my opinion. There are those folks who are like, you should have never brought them back. But
well, don't feel bad. S. Lee says mammoth bones recently unearthed in Santa Fe, New Mexico. Oh yeah, S. Lee, when they recreate the mammoth again, they're going to put them in New Mexico, and you'll have them walking around because they used to live there.
Right.
Yeah, get one of them with your car.
One of the things that folks don't really realize, but I grew up in Florida, in Tampa, and in the middle of Florida, around Bartow and over in that area, there are great big mines where they're, limestone and stuff like that. And I don't know if it's still there, but they uncovered some mammoth bones down in middle Florida. And I mean, dinosaur, they have issues with anaconda and large lizards now that have escaped into the Everglades. And I was watching one of those programs while I was in the hospital, and I was like, a 20-foot anaconda? I'm sorry, I have worked mistakes and stuff over the years, but when I saw a 20-foot anaconda that these guys are trying to chase down and put in a bag, I'm like, and they're where? Oh, they're down there. Holy crap, that's way too close for me.
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing, if they caught a 20-footer, there's usually always a bigger one.
Yeah, that's just it. Yeah.
Well,
Well,
what
here's the-
happens when there's a 40-footer? You
And
know, or
here's the thing, just east of me, I mean, like due east, is the Great Okefenokee Swamp.
mhm.
They never had anacondas or anything like that. But with the weather changes and stuff and the way these things are migrating, what's to say, 10, 20, 30 years, or maybe even sooner, they're going to be in the Okefenokee Swamp.
I agree. I
You
agree. It
know?
depends on climate change. I mean,
Well, it
if
depends on how fast they can swim.
well, that too. I mean, if it's the right conditions, they'll move, they'll adapt, they'll change, things like that. Here's a good one. Lucky says bison are weird. There is one species of bison that is comprised of two subspecies in North America and another species of bison in Europe. How are bison in US and Europe the same? Did they swim? That's a good question.
That's right.
Or where's their landmass that they just walked across? Or somebody transplant them. I always wonder how come they don't take polar bears and put them down in Antarctica. They'd probably do just fine.
Because there's no seals down there.
Oh, I thought there's seals in Antarctica, isn't there?
Well, not like they. Well, never mind. That's out of my league.
Well, another show, another time. So
Yeah.
what do you got for us, since we really went in deep on this? But the thing is see, these Indians in Pontiac, they were getting corrupted right from the get-go with all the trinkets and goodies, and they were tossing their heritage out the window. And the Great Spirit told him, hey, you're tossing everything I gave you away. This is what I gave you. I gave you all this land. I gave the animals for clothes, the skins. I gave you stones to make arrows. I gave you all of this. And what do? You're trading it away for some kettles and knives and some guns and fire water.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah, firewater. Oh my goodness.
Yeah. So that's the scoop on that. So anyway, okay, what do you got? I will pull this up right away.
All right. Well, I was kind of messing around in the beginning, in the middle of the book here, and as we kind of sort of brought up Devil's Tower, there's a short story in here about the Devil's Tower, and I think we've read
Ooh.
it before.
What page?
Wait, hang on. I'm looking. There's also, the story about the first ship, and so it's a short story. So and then there's another one. I'm in about the 200. Head for 211.
Okay.
This story, the Son of Light kills the monster. I'm not sure I've read that. I don't know. But anyway, but there's a couple. One of them is Devil's Tower. Hang on. Yeah, The Legend of Devil's Tower, which is like 2 pages, and The First Ship, which is like 2 pages.
Okay.
So I was going to read those.
Son of Light kills the monster.
Yeah.
Okay, that's where we're starting.
Yeah.
Okay. There we go. Hot diggity dog.
All right. Let me assume the position. I have been looking. Oh, and I pulled cards too, by the way.
All right. Sounds good.
And the interesting thing, I'm looking for my other pair of glasses. And not having much luck. Can't find my little black pair that I was, you know what? I might have broken before I went to the hospital. Anyway,
no.
I'm going to use these and get by.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Son of Light kills the monster. It's a Hopi story. And I hope you get it right. Man Eagle, a frightful monster, had laid waste to the whole country. With his sharp talons, he seized women and girls, wives and maidens. He flew off of them to his home above the clouds, where he abused them for 4 days before eating them up. Among those abducted by Man Eagle was the young wife of Son of Light. Within hours, this hero was on their trail. And along the way, he met the pinon maidens dressed in grass and pinon bark. With them were Spider Woman and Mole. Where are you going? The spirit people asked the Son of Light. Man Eagle has stolen my wife, he answered. I'm going to rescue her, but I have to get there in a hurry before he kills her. This is bad, says Spider Woman, but never fear, I'll help you. And to the pinon maidens, she said, you girls gather pinon resin and shape it into a copy of Man Eagle's flint arrowed shirt that no weapon can penetrate. Be quick. The pinon maidens gathered the resin and made a shirt exactly like Man Eagle's. And when they had finished it, Spider Woman sprinkled sacred corn pollen over it and chanted an invocation. Then she turned herself into a tiny spider no bigger than a grain of salt and crawled up on Son of Light's right ear. Here I am, she said, where I can tell you what to do if you get into trouble. The next step is up to Mole. Mole burrowed a passage through the mountain up to the top so that Son of Light could get to the summit without being seen. When they came out onto the mountain top, they saw that there was still far well below Man Eagle's home in the clouds. Spider Woman said, I'll call some good birds to help us. The first to answer her call was the Spotted Eagle. Son of Light, Mole, and Spider Woman climbed onto the back, and he spread his wings and began circling upwards. Higher and higher he flew until at last he was exhausted. I can go no farther, he said. Spider Woman then called on the hawk, who came at once, flying wingtip to wingtip with the Spotted Eagle. Mole and Son of Light with Spider Woman, still perched on his right ear, walked over the wings onto the hawk's back. Hawk carried them even higher, but after a while his strength gave out too. This is as high as I can go, he said. Spider Woman called for the gray hawk to take over. Again, Son of Light, Mole, and Spider Woman changed birds, and the gray hawk flew them up higher than the others. Still, it was not high enough, and these three friends transferred to the back of the red hawk, best of all flyers. Spider Woman called for the gray hawk to take over, and again, the red hawk flew through the hole in the clouds and right to the White House that was the home of Man Eagle. Thanking the red hawk for carrying them so far, Son of Light, Spider Woman, and Mole got down and walked boldly up to the house. Look at the ladder to the entrance, said Spider Woman to the Son of Light. Its rungs are sharp obsidian knives. They'll cut your fingers off if you try to get up there. Well, what shall we do? Asked the Son of Light. Go pick some sumac berries, Spider Woman said. Son of Light gathered the berries and returned to her. Now feed them to Horned Toad over there, she said. Son of Light popped the berries into the wide mouth of Horned Toad, who chewed them into a gooey paste, which he spit into the palm of the Son of Light's hand. Now smear what Horned Toad has given you on the sharp edges of the rungs, Spider Woman told him. As Son of Light smeared the edges, they immediately became blunt so that he could climb up without having his fingers cut off. Spider Woman was still behind his right ear, while little Mole had buried himself in the Son of Light's hair. With his two hidden companions, Son of Light stepped into Man Eagle's home. The first thing he saw was Man Eagle's magic flint arrowed shirt hanging from a viga. Quick as a flash, Son of Light hung the counterfeit shirt on that rafter and put the real shirt on. They were so alike that not even Son of Light could tell them apart. He went into the second room and found his wife, her hands tied behind her back. I'm come to free you, he told her. Flee, she cried, run quickly. No one who enters here ever leaves alive. Don't be afraid, he answered, untying her hands. We'll come out of here alive and happy. Man Eagle was asleep in the next room, but Spider Woman was carrying a hear nothing charm, which prevented their noise from reaching his ears. Unaware that strangers were in his house, he awoke and sat on his he put on his flint arrowed shirt, then went into the next room. Now I will enjoy the beautiful girl, he thought, but instead he found himself face to face with Son of Light. Who are you? Asked Man Eagle. How dare you come here? But you've stolen my wife, and I'm taking her back now. Maybe you will, and maybe you won't, said Man Eagle. You're speaking big words, but first you'll have a contest with me. What kind of contest? Inquired Son of Light. A smoking contest, said Man Eagle. The monster brought out a huge pipe as long as a good-sized man and filled it with tobacco. We will both smoke this, he told Son of Light, and whoever weakens and faints is the loser. If you lose, I have the right to kill you and possess your wife. If you win, you can take her back. Now, Man Eagle's magic tobacco was poisonous enough to stun anyone who was not used to it, though it no longer had any effect on him. But while Man Eagle explained the rules of the contest, Mole quickly burrowed a hole in the floor underneath the spot on which Son of Light was sitting. Mole made a passage all the way down through the earth to the outside, and as the man and the monster puffed away, the smoke passed right through Son of Light and through the hole into the outside air. The two smoked and smoked until Man Eagle got dizzy from his own magic tobacco and had to stop. Son of Light, on the other hand, was unaffected. Filled to the bursting point with smoke, Man Eagle stepped outside the house to clear his head. Son of Light followed, and they both saw dense clouds of smoke covering the whole sky. I wonder how he did it, thought Man Eagle. Aloud, he said, well, you win this contest, but this is only the first. Now comes the second. Man Eagle brought forth two large elk antlers. Take this, he told Son of Light, and I'll take the other. Each of us will try and break his in two. If you fail to break yours with your hands, I shall kill you and possess your wife. The antler that Man Eagle had given his rival was actually a magical piece of stone, the hardest stone in the world. The antler that Man Eagle had kept for himself was a false antler made of a brittle wood. Quick as a flash, just before the contest began, Spider Woman exchanged the two elk antlers. She did it with such lightning speed that not even the eye of Man Eagle could follow her. The rivals took up their antlers, and the Son of Light broke his easily. But Man Eagle couldn't not break his, however hard he tried. I wonder how he did that, thought the monster. He was not so sure of himself now. Well, this was just child's play, something to warm it up. said Man Eagle. Now for our third contest. What is it this time? Said Son of Light. Step outside with me, said Man Eagle. And as they went out, the monster pointed to two large pine trees near his house. You choose one of those trees, then I will choose the other. And he who fails to pull his tree up by the root loses the contest. If I win, I'll kill you and possess your wife. So be it, answered Son of Light. Man Eagle chose the tree which he thought had the shallower roots. Remember, he told Son of Light, if you fail to pull up your tree, trunk, branches, roots, and all, you lose, no matter what I do. During these preparations, Mole had burrowed underneath Son of Light's tree and had gnawed through all the roots. Son of Light pulled it up easily, while Man Eagle could not uproot his. It pleased me to let you win once more, he told Son of Light, but you must win the fourth and last contest. To himself, he said, I wonder how he did it. This young man is really strong. What do you propose? Asked Son of Light. Watch me, answered Man Eagle. He began carrying into his biggest room heaps of food, meat of all kinds, peaky bread and cornbread of all kinds, mush and gruel of all kinds, squash and bean dishes of all kinds, baskets, pots, cups, and dippers full of food. Making 2 mountains of it all, he told Son of Light, this is your heap, and that one over there is mine. You must eat your heap all at once without leaving a single scrap. If you can't do it, I'll kill you and possess your wife. I'm sure I could win this one, Man Eagle said to himself. The young man is puny compared with me. He can't absorb all this food. Again, Mole had dug a tunnel underneath Son of Light. And as quickly as Son of Light emptied a dish, the food passed through him and through the tunnel to someplace outside the house. In no time, Son of Light had eaten the whole mountain of meat, corn, squash, beans, peaky, and mush. Man Eagle tried to match him dish for dish, but he couldn't. Well, said Son of Light, now I'll take my wife and go home. Not quite yet, said Man Eagle. In the end, it comes down to this. Which of us is invulnerable? Which of us can withstand the flames of a mighty fire? I can. Can you? We shall see. Man Eagle made 2 huge piles of dry eagle. You sit on this one, and I'll sit on that, he said. Your wife can set fire to them once we're in position. If you can withstand the fire, then I'll do whatever you say. Now, thought Man Eagle, I can get rid of this upstart. My magic flint-arrowed shirt is fireproof, but the young fellow will burn up. Son of Light's wife set fire to the 2 wood piles. Of course, Son of Light was wearing the real magic flint-arrowed shirt. Coated with ice, clear and cold like crystal, it protected him from the flames. In the process part of the ice melted and extinguished the fire. But the shirt of Man Eagle made out of resin ignited in a flash, which was so thoroughly consumed Man Eagle that only his ashes remained. Then Spider-Woman whispered into Son of Light's ear, take this wonderful medicine of mine in your mouth and spurt it all over Man Eagle's ashes. Son of Light did what Spider-Woman said, and as he spat the medicine over the ashes, Man Eagle arose, transformed into a good-looking man. Spider-Woman addressed this eagle turned into a man. Have you learned your lesson? Will you stop killing and eating people? Will you stop stealing and abusing wives and maidens? Will you promise? Eagle turned into man and said, I promise. I will never do evil again. Never. Son of Light joyfully claimed his wife, while Spider Woman brought all the Hopi people whom Man Eagle had killed back to life again. Then they all got on their backs for the eagle, hawk, gray hawk, and the red hawk, and these friendly birds carried them safely back to their homes. And with that, ends story time.
Well, that was a good one. I like that one.
And so earlier today, I was thinking about drawing cards for tonight.
Yep.
And I had this little vision of two cards. Now, as I was going through them, I drew one of them, one of the first cards I picked up, and it's bear.
Ah, bear.
And the other one is whale. Now, whale was not what I saw in my little vision thingy, but guess what? Eagle was. And so I just read a story about eagle. I pulled the bear card. So anyway, it's interesting that some of the stuff that, you know, I kind of asked for earlier today, what kind of card do you want me to pick? And we got the bear card.
The bear card.
Bear card. Now, I've pulled the bear card many times. And so, but I'm going to go back to it. Now, I think it was upside down, but I'm not sure. But it's the bear medicine that we're actually, you know, is one of our things for tonight. So it's number 5 in the book. And by the way, after I got out of the hospital, I was going through some of my things and I ran across a number for some dear friends of mine. And Miss Christine is the lady who sent me these cards.
Oh.
She sent me the cards and the book years ago, and I have reconnected with her, and I haven't talked to her in years, okay? And we've both had issues, and we've both had near-death experiences that were very closely related, not at the same time, mind you. And she said, you know, our mission isn't done, is it, Dave? And I went, nope. So always in honor of Miss Christine, the books and these cards, you know, my prayers are with her, because we seem to have a similar mission in life after all these years.
That is so cool.
Yeah, she's a sweet lady.
Yep. Well, yeah. Delaney Pearl Jones is in the house. Thank you for coming.
So Bear is introspection. Bear invites me into the cave where silence surrounds the answers that you gave. The strength of bear medicine is the power of introspection. It lies in the West on the great medicine wheel of life. Bear seeks honey or the sweetness of truth within the hollow of an old tree. In the winter, when the ice queen comes and rains the land and the face of death is upon the earth, Bear enters the womb cave to hibernate, to digest the year's experience. It is said that our goals reside in the West also. Let me repeat that. It is said that our goals reside in the West also. So y'all think about that. Do you have a goal, if you're achieving it or not? Anyway, to accomplish the goals and dreams that we carry, the art of introspection is necessary. To become like Bear and enter the safety of the womb cave, we must attune ourselves to the energies of the eternal mother and receive nourishment from the placenta of the great void. The great void is the place where all solutions and all answers live in harmony with the questions that fill our realities. So if you've got a question about something, all the solutions, the answers lie in the universe. If we choose to believe that there are many questions to life, we must also believe that the answer to these questions also reside within us. Each and every being has the capacity to quiet the mind, enter the silence, and simply know. Many tribes have called this space of inner knowing the dream lodge, where the death of the illusion of physical reality overlays the expansiveness of eternity. The death of the illusion of physical reality. So your physical reality is, oh my God, we're all going to die, the way some folks are preaching. But in the dream lodge that our ancestors sit in council and advise us regarding alternative pathways that lead us to our goals. This is the power of bear. So while everybody's trying to confuse you here in this physical reality, the dream lodge overlies the expansiveness of eternity. That might be a little hard to understand, but so where you think there is no hope, when you go into the dream lodge, you can see other avenues, other ways around a problem, other things. If one to imagine, the female receptive energy that for centuries has allowed visionaries and mystics and shamans to prophesy is contained in this very special bear energy. In India, the cave symbolizes the cave of Brahma. Brahma's cave is considered to be the pineal gland that sits in the center of the four lobes of the brain. If one were to imagine an overview of the head, of the top of it would be a circle. The south would be the forehead, the north, the back of the skull, the west would be the right brain, and the east, the left. Bear is in the west, the intuitive side, the right brain. To hibernate, bear travels to the cave, which is in the center of the four lobes. So you can go into your cave that's in the middle of your head. You don't have to travel anywhere, just close your eyes and imagine it. Bear travels to the cave, which is the center of the four lobes, where the pineal gland resides. In the cave, bear seeks answer while he or she is dreaming or hibernating. Bear is then reborn in the spring, like the opening of spring flowers. For eons, all seekers of the dream time and of the visions have walked the path of silence, calming the inner chatter, reaching the place of rites of passage, the channel or the pineal gland. From the cave of bear, you find the pathway to the dream lodge and the other levels of imagination and consciousness. In choosing bear, the power of knowing has invited you to enter into the silence and become acquainted with the dream lodge, so that your goals may become a concrete reality. This is the strength of bear. Now, the contrary, if you have drawn the bear reversed, your internal dialogue may have confused your perception of your true goals. In seeking answers or advice from others, you have placed your own feelings and your knowing aside. The time has come to regain your authority, for no one is better than yourself to regain your own authority. And no one beside yourself knows what is proper and timely for your evolution. Reclaim the power of knowing, find joy in the silence and the richness of mother's womb. Allow the thoughts of confusion to be laid to rest as clarity emerges from the west, nurturing your dreams. Bear in the contrary position is teaching you that only through being your own advisor can you attain your true goals. Anything less than the doing of that which gives you the most joy is denial. So there are a lot of things in this time that people are going through. They have goals they want to achieve. They seek information from other people. Ain't nothing wrong with getting advice, don't get me wrong. But sometimes your best advice is your own advice, especially in the end. Now, whale was the other card, page 41. And it's about whale song. And one of the things that, and this has come up with some friends of mine and folks that I know, and it's the song of the universe. There have been folks who I've just asked the universe to send a song to, a melody, and that it has helped. And whale is the record keeper, but the whale song is one of the things I also wanted to, we'll see if it shows up in here. Whale of mighty oceans, you have seen it all. Secrets of the ages are heard within your call. Teach me how to hear your words and how to understand the very roots of history of when our world began. So with bear, you go in to seek the knowledge into the cave. And whale is very much like a swimming library, and whale carries the history of Mother Earth and is said to have been placed here by the ancients of the dog star Sirius. Now that's interesting. I pulled the whale card because we're in the dog days of summer. And the dog star Sirius is to the south and orange. And anyway, so biologists say that whale is a mammal and very possibly lived on land millions of years ago. In tribal legend, whales move into the ocean happened when the earth shifted and Lemuria, the motherland, went below the waves. And that's part of what we were talking about, cataclysms and things earlier. All of our petroglyphs speak of the motherland Mu and the disaster that brought the red race to the North America from the west. Here's the west again. Bear lives in the west. Connections beyond the great waters. The symbols speak of the rivers and mountains crossed by our ancestors when they sought solid ground as the water receded. Whale saw the events that led to the settling of Turtle Island, North America, and has kept the records and the knowledge of the motherland alive. It is said that Mu will rise again when the fire comes from the sky and lands in another ocean on Mother Earth. The native medicine people are waiting for this event as the next sign of Earth changes. Earth's children will have to unite and all honor all the ways of all other races and all other peoples in order to survive. Whale medicine people are coded in their DNA to understand that sound frequencies can bring up records in the memories of ancient knowledge. They are usually clairaudient or able to hear both very low and very high frequencies. They're usually psychically developed and fairly telepathic. Many times, however, they are not awakened to their gifts until it is time to use the stored records. Many whale medicine people are able to tap into the universal mind of the Great Spirit and have no idea how or why they know what they know. Only later than when they receive confirmation do they begin to understand how they know or why they have received the impressions. Whale medicine teaches us to use the sound and frequencies that balance our emotions, our emotional bodies, and heal our physical forms. To recall why the shaman's drum brings healing and peace is to align with whale's medicine and also whale's message. The drum is the universal heartbeat and aligns all beings heart to heart. Before the advent of speech and the primordial language, hand signs were used, and many tribes were silent most of the time. That's so very true. The language that was understood was the sounds of great spirits, other creatures, the animals. If you pulled the whale card, you're being asked to tap into the records and allow yourself to be sung to by those who have the original language. Now, here is the key thing I wanted everybody to understand with the whale. We are the only creatures who do not have our own cry.
Huh.
We're the only creatures. So we can sing in different languages and do different things, but birds, cats, every animal, even tiny little insects, I've heard squealing when something's eaten it. But we're the only creatures that have, we don't have our own cry.
Oh,
So
yeah,
why-
but somebody hurts you. What do? You just start screaming, I guess.
Yeah, but that's different than having your own call. A bear has a call, you know, but anyway, just think on that. So the idea though that find yours, allow your voice to use this sound to release tension or emotions. Sometimes if you just go out in the backyard and scream, it does a lot for you. Allow your voice to use this sound to release tension or emotion. Whale signals a time of finding your own origins. So one of the things is sometimes you just got to scream. Sometimes it's just go outside and do a Tarzan call. Sometimes it just to the universe, you know.
Yep.
But just do it. It fills your heart, your soul, and it helps you connect with all kinds of stuff. But anyway, bear is introspection, and whale is find your song, because the song of whale, you know, stirs up ancient memories. So those two cards, that's that for tonight.
There you go. Yeah, Pajo says this year for me, I've seen 5 bears this year and seen a cub today. They're abundant this year. I think where are you at, Pajo? California area? Little bear I seen today looked like a puppy at first. No bears on the plains here of North Dakota. No place for him to hide.
Well, that's true. I hadn't thought of that.
Yep, that's one thing I don't have to worry about here. No bears. Maybe cougars, but no bears.
We've got there are black bears in the panhandle of Florida and down around Tallahassee and certain places down there. And and there's been reported, now we used to have black bears here in South Georgia. There have been reported that some of the bears are moving north into my territory. So which is interesting, you know, like what? Bear? Okay. We do have wild boar that have moved into the backyard, and there's an open season for them suckers.
Yeah, they can do a lot of destructive damage.
They do. Before I went in the hospital, Duggar and I went in my backyard, and there were huge areas. I mean, 75 feet squarish kind of thing. I mean, a big spot that just tumbled up. Now it is the swamp, but that ain't the point. They were tearing it up.
Oh yeah, I used to have pigs, and I raised pigs, and man, they got out. Man, they'd go out in the field, and they would just rut to their heart's content. Looked like I went through there and plowed the field. I was like, and then it was horrible because they, you know, all my good grass, you know, that I had for the horses to eat on, they just ruined it all. And then it took a long time for it to grow back because they ate all the roots.
Yeah, not only that, but some of them hog manure is really tainted. It'll kill stuff just by itself, just wherever a hog is pooed. Stuff don't like to grow. They're nasty in that respect.
Well, anyway, this has
how's
been
that for a show, Robert?
This has been a really good night, and we kept it under 2 hours. So we can get done in the next 2 minutes. It'll be 1 hour and 45 minutes. So anyway, by gosh, we're doing good. We learned a lot. I hope everybody enjoyed, because the first part there, we really did some good information, and then
let loose.
yeah, just let her fly. So I hope y'all enjoyed that. David, thank you for coming on and being my co-host, and I appreciate it so much. I'm glad to have you back. Put it that way. There we
I'm glad to
go.
be back. It's very nice, everybody's prayers. And I honestly could feel y'all praying for me. And I can't thank you enough. My medicine is doing me well. I've sat here for an hour and 45 minutes with Robert and been able, so hopefully you can tell that I am getting my strength back. It's going to be different, let me tell you. But
no show tonight after this, or are you going to get some sleep?
if it is, it's going to be a short one because
All
I
right.
am kind of tired. It's only been a week since I've been out of the hospital today, so I don't want to push it.
Yeah, don't push it. Get some rest. I want you back next week. So,
Yeah.
and with that, thank you everyone in the chat. Thank you of all who will watch this later. And remember, go out, do something nice for someone, and go do a little studying on your history. There's a lot more out there than you actually know, and we're trying to bring the best to you. So go out there, be the frequency you want to receive, everyone. Love you all. Peace, everybody.
Cheers. Bye.